Today's about two ends of the spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, I had an athlete last week race Lake Sonoma in California. It was a 50 miler. It was his first 50 miler, and he's coming in just post-collegiate career with a lot of speed. He ran 7:31, came in third, kind of had a perfect pacing day. He just kind of worked his way up the field all the way and finished third on the podium. So all we really needed to do was focus on creating more endurance for him coming into the ultra marathoning world and honing his speed and strength endurance. He had the speed coming in. All we needed to do was layer on appropriate endurance for this season with him going much longer, heading up to the 50 miler distance. The speed we did do was to keep his leg turnover. When we're going into ultramarathoning training, doing a lot of vertical, a lot of mountains, a lot of trails, that creates a lot of good strength and a lot of good endurance, but it also makes our leg turnover slower and makes us slow. So I use speed training to maintain his speed and to maintain his leg turnover, to help him for Lake Sonoma, especially because that's a relatively fast course. It was hot that day, so that was the challenge. But that was the speed that we did, the purpose of the speed that we used, rather than honing more speed. He had all the speed he kind of needed right now for jumping up to the 50-mile distance. Unlike the other end of the spectrum with another athlete who's doing his first 100-miler tomorrow, coming into this season with no running experience whatsoever. So we had to do something completely different. You can see the smoke. Trying to take it as easy as I can. We've been having to hike a little bit to keep the effort. You can feel the smoke in the lungs and the throat. Not good. Anyways, tomorrow this runner does his first 100-miler, Wasatch 100, one of the more difficult 100s out there, and one of the more iconic races that's been around for a very, very long time. This runner, like I mentioned, came into ultramarathoning this year with no experience. He had actually been a volunteer for the race for many, many years and has some 24-hour car racing as experience. So he has the ability to know what it takes mentally to go for a very long time, but no running experience. We had to do something very, very different than my athlete who went to Lake Sonoma last week. This Wasatch runner, like I mentioned, no experience, relatively slow, a little overweight, and so our approach had to be super, super different. I needed to really, really improve his raw speed, because at some point, and this is a mistake a lot of ultramarathoners make coming into the sport, is that they focus so much on training endurance, doing your long run, increasing the volume right away, that you're never really improving your ability to be able to run well for a very long time. And that's what we need to work on, is we need to work on honing your speed, what I call your raw speed, or in this case, I mentioned it in a lot of videos before, we talk about improving your mile time. We improved this runner's mile time by almost 3 minutes. Okay, so now his overall ability has improved, because that translates across the whole endurance spectrum. If you get faster at a mile, you're going to get faster all across the board with relatively appropriate endurance training that comes later. So if you want to get better at ultramarathoning and you're coming into the sport with not a lot of speed, look to improve your speed first. Then apply that to what we would more intuitively think is most appropriate for building volume, building your long run for your race distance. This gentleman, this runner, this year our plan was we did a 25K, a 50K, a 50 miler, and now tomorrow he's doing a 100 miler. So that was the progression to get him used to aid stations, what it's like to run for a very long time. And we progressed those distances leading up to the 100 miler. So as you get closer and closer to your long priority race, the training should get much more specific. The further away you are, the much more general it is. And in this case, our general training was to improve his mile time, to improve his ability to be able to run. Okay, and a lot of times when ultramarathoners coming into the sport that don't have a lot of speed or experience to draw on from speed, their raw speed is not fast enough to be able to run for long periods of time. That running for that distance is too hard, and therefore they have diminishing returns. They have to walk. They ran too hard, and now their stomach's upset because they can't fuel properly because their effort's too hard. Okay, this is not an endurance problem. This is a speed problem. Whew. So now how does this apply to you runners that have a lot of experience? Whew. Gotta catch my breath. If you have a lot of ultramarathoning experience, but you found a plateau, go back and working on your speed. The tendency is you start to plateau, you start doing more volume or more miles, and that's going to continue to add to the plateau. Take some time away from a lot of volume and work on your speed. And let's use the marathon as an easy math example. If you're wanting to run a sub 3 hour marathon and you can't run a mile faster than 6 minute pace, it's not possible yet. Okay, you've got to get that speed under 6 minutes to even think that a 3 hour marathon's possible with your endurance. Yeah, baby. So the season's winding down. Maybe you've got your last big race coming this fall. Get some recovery after that, and then maybe look to hit the track. If you have a lot of snow in the winter, jump on a treadmill. Spend 2 days a week honing your speed. It can be fun, invigorating, something different to look forward to. So I took the ridge line up the last bit. Down there's Jackson Hole. Over in the haze is the Tetons over there somewhere. But I took the ridge because it's a little slower, more hiking to help with the breathing. But I want to finish up going back to my athlete who ran Lake Sonoma 50 mile last week. Our plan, this was his big race, last big race of the year. He has Black Canyon coming up in the spring, which is a golden ticket race for Western States, which is his goal of qualifying for Western States, which has to be a top 2 at the race. So are we going to abandon his speed training? Absolutely not. We're going to maintain the leg turnover training that I spoke of earlier, but my plan is for him to work on speed on the trail, to close that gap from what his flat and fast speed is and what his trail speed is. And so that's where he can improve, of getting faster on the trails and using the speed he already has developed to get better at that speed on the trail. That will ultimately accomplish what we're talking about with this video, of continuing to get faster in many different ways to improve your overall speed endurance, your endurance for longer races. Right now, he's going into a 2 or 3 week recovery phase where no running at all, maybe throw in some biking, and then after that 3 or 4 weeks, we'll start slowly getting back into some running and get back into what I would consider the 2022 season. All right, thanks for watching as always. We'll see you next time. Go away, smoke.